Hey guys, welcome to the recap for week 4. Just first off, I've decided at this point to forego the ticker at the bottom of the screen. I suspect that most of you are consuming this more like a podcast and less like actually watching super closely to the video. The entire reason that I thought about doing the ticker was so that I could sneak fun stuff in there later in the season, making fun of people and making some jokes. And then my team is crappy, and so it's not as much fun if I'm crappy and not it sucks. Having realized that sneaking stuff in there like that would probably get missed, it's probably not really worth the time that it takes to set that joke up for the whole season. Getting that ticker working in the video editor is kind of a pain in the butt. Anyways, this week's top score, Chris's 2 men in a defense, who knocked off Josh's "Oh God, this again," 127.8 to 103.1. Chris got 45.1 points from Tyreek Hill, who led all players in scoring this week. That was backed up with 22.5 from Russell Wilson, 17.4 from Justin Jefferson, and 15 from Alvin Kamara. All is not well, as you did opt to start Nyheim Hines, who did only put up 0.06 of a point this week. He had 2 catches for 6 yards, but managed to fumble once to offset those catches. Josh got 31.2 points from Jalen Hurts, and 27.1 from Saquon Barkley to lead his team. After that, you got 13 from Darren Waller and 12 from Green Bay's defense. You did struggle this week at wide receiver as Cole Beasley, Odell Beckham Jr., and Will Fuller combined for just 8.8 points. That's less than the only wide receiver that you didn't start, Laviska Shenault Jr., put up, who scored 14.4 on your bench.
Wrong choice, Daddy-O.
Week 4's biggest blowout was Derek some motherfucker beating Tom's I Can See for miles and miles, 114.3 to 83.5, a 30.8 point margin of victory. Derek was led this week with 3 20-point players, Zeke Elliott putting up 23.3, Kyler Murray adding in 22.6, and James Robinson adding in another 20.1. You also had a trio of players putting in between 12 and 15 points behind that. Your team did have a couple black eyes this week, getting only 1.6 from Mike Williams and a negative 0.9 from the Rams defense. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll play much better against whoever you happen to be playing this weekend.
I'm totally screwed!
With the win, you're now the only undefeated team left in the league, so congrats on that. Tom, you got 19.4 from Lamar Jackson this week, followed by a pair of 14-point games from Stephon Diggs and Mike Gesicki. The high-dollar fab get from last week, Chuba Hubbard, managed only 8.1 points in your flex, and you had a trio of wide receivers on the bench that scored at least 10 points, led by 19.1 from Corey Davis in his first game going against his old team, the Titans.
Bummer, dude!
That could have probably been an improvement over Hubbard in your flex. In Week 4's closest game, Lee's Daxine mandate snuck past Nick's T-Boner showing 94.4 to 92, a 2.4 point margin of victory. Lee got 27 points from Dak Prescott to lead all players in scoring in this matchup. You also got 15.7 from Devontae Parker and 13.6 from Noah Fant. Fant's 13.6 points at the tight end position gave you the buffer versus Nick that you needed, as his Logan Thomas was injured in the first quarter before putting any actual points on the board. You did have a rough day from your running backs, only getting 9 points from Trey Sermon and 5.4 from Dalvin Cook. Speaking of rough days, Nick's leading player in this matchup was running back David Montgomery, who put up 25.6 points for the Bears before getting hurt in the fourth quarter. Monty's injury looks like it's going to be knocking him out for about a month, plus the Logan Thomas injury is going to be about a month as well. Fortunately, so far this season, you've avoided most of the injury train, and you had 2 open IR spots, so you can don't have to worry about cutting anybody to fill that spots. But it's going to be hard to reproduce that production that you've been getting out of those 2 so far this season. Still, you only lost by 2.5 points, which does give you your first loss of the season. Lee's win here gets him his first win of the season and gets him out of last place. This week's beer choice, Spotted Cow, on tap. Still drinking from the draft weekend. Stop by, have a beer if you want. Lee and Nick wasn't the only close game this week. There were 2 other matchups settled by less than 5 points. Pope 2.0's Pew Pews knocked off Jason's Best of Times, Blurst of Times, 115.7 to 111.7, a 4-point margin of victory. Pope, you got 27.3 from Terry McLaurin and 21.3 from Justin Herbert to lead the team in scoring. Joe Mixon, Antonio Gibson, and Ryan Suckup all added around 13 or 14 points as well. Your team gave its all this week as you had the optimal lineup in that was available to you. Javonte Williams and Rondell Moore were the only players on your bench who scored any points, and both scored less than any starter on the bench.
Please teach me.
Jason, your team may have come in second in this matchup, but you really aren't living up to that Blurst of Times moniker. You continue to run hot on the Buffalo Bills.
We are the Bills Mafia.
With the Buffalo's defense scoring 24.9 points and Josh Allen scoring 20. Amari Cooper and Kenny Galladay each added 14, and Jamar Chase added another 10.7. Unfortunately for you, you did have the points available to grab this week's win. Had you opted to start Leonard Fournette's 15.3 in over either DeAndre Swift or Melvin Gordon III, you would have picked up at least 8 points, which would have been double the 4-point margin of victory. In the final close game, Alex's Quad D defeated Trent's Goodell Castro 106.1 to 102.8. Alex got 31 points from Austin Eckler to lead his team to the win this week. Finally, some guy named Aaron Rodgers showed up pretty big, putting up 24.1 points. Kareem Hunt and Robert Woods also added double-digit games. You did have a bit of a flop from Christian Kirk, who only put up 1 catch and 5 yards in a game where Arizona scored 37 points. Kirk's having a bit of a weird season. He's only got 18 total targets, but he's had a 21.5-point week and a 14-point week. It seems like it caught up to him as he only had the 1 target this week, and he caught the only ball that came his way.
I could catch the football.
Trent was led this week by 22.3 points from Joe Burrow and 21.9 from Jonathan Taylor. Najee Harris added 18.1 as well. You came up short in this one, and there's plenty of blame to go around. Robbie Gould putting up a 0 after he managed to hurt himself in pregame warmups certainly didn't help. And the fact that you opted to start Jalen Waddle over any of the 3, whether it be Quintez Cephas, A.J. Dillon, or Hunter Renfrow, all 3 of them would have outscored Waddle and given you the win. And Sam Darnold continues to beast. Had you started him over Joe Burrow, would have also worked. There were plenty of options to get you the W, but you just didn't come together this week. Besides the big blowout of Derek over Tom, there were also a couple other big blowouts. Brandon's blown call thumped Drew's Scamper CMC 112.7 to 83.4, a 30.3-point margin of victory. Brandon, I have no idea how you still have Patrick Mahomes. I figured he would have been the first player stolen in the expansion draft, and there he is. Puts up 31.7 points for you to lead the squad this week. He had a lot of support from his wide receivers, Calvin Ridley and Mike Evans, and running backs Nick Chubb and Zach Moss, all who scored between 11 and 14 points for you. The remaining on the squad all scored at least 6.7 points, so you really had no duds this week.
Good team effort. Good team effort.
Drew had the highest scoring player in the matchup, however, getting 35.3 from Deebo Samuel. He did not have the support and the backing from the rest of the team that Mahomes got, as Tom Brady was the only other player who got to double digits with his 11 points. Sterling Shepard was the biggest offender in your lineup. He was declared inactive just before the game, and you were unable to get him out in favor of somebody else like, I don't know, maybe Cordarrelle Patterson, who put up 35.2 points on your bench. That 35 points would have been enough to win this, and he was probably the most likely candidate to get subbed into that flex spot over someone like Kyle Juszczyk, who was a fullback, and also good luck trying to spell Juszczyk. That took me like 3 or 4 tries just to type it right in this damn thing. And the final blowout was Pope 1.0's Serenity Now, thumping my hilarious no way I'm going to win this 121.3 to 92.4, a 28.9-point margin of victory. In the Battle of Scots, Bauman reigned supreme, getting 27.9 from Taylor Heineke, 27.9 from DJ Moore, and 27.7 from Derrick Henry. Yes, you heard me correctly, that's 3 27-point games. Oh, and then you had DeAndre Hopkins, Aaron Jones, and Mark Andrew combined for another 27 points. With the win, you joined the crowd of 3-1 teams. Can't say I'm super surprised. I've mostly lost faith in my team at this point. My running back situation seems to be kind of okay. I got 21.4 from Clyde Edwards-Helaire and 14.1 from Darrell Henderson. I went into the season really banking on my starting wide receiver combo of Allen Robinson and A.J. Brown to be, something. They were both listed as top 15 wideouts depending on where you looked. So far, the 2 guys are ranked 69th and 82nd. So not great. Yeah, I know A.J. Brown has been partially hurt for season, so, who knows where that is. So not great that I benched Allen Robinson this week in favor of Tim Patrick, who had an absolutely awful game and still only managed to be outscored by Robinson by 2 points. At this point, I'm banking on the Bears being forced to throw more this next week with David Montgomery being hurt, so I'm going to plug him back into the lineup. What the hell is wrong with me? Why am I rooting for the Bears offense? What do you think, Steve Cat?
You suck! You suck!
At the time I started recording this, I realized that I forgot to add in my notes from Nick, his stat corner, so I'm just going to read through the notes he sent me here. This is my 60th loss, so thanks for that. That's great. Chris You beating Josh this weekend, that puts Chris at 75 wins and Josh at 75 losses overall. Chris, it's your 12th weekly high score. Brandon continues to smoke Drew. You're up 7-2 all time in the matchups. And the average score this week was 106.16, which I still have not gotten over the average score in 4 weeks. Great. In terms of free agent ads this week, another running back injury means it's a very active waiver period. Damian Williams was the man this week, who will be stepping into David Montgomery's shoes in Chicago. Lee won the bidding with a $41 bid, beating out 6 other teams. The other bid ranged from $33 all the way down to a $2 bid from Brandon. I'm pretty confident in saying that he wasn't going to go for $2, but you throw a shot out, you never know, you might get lucky. New England's defense, who gets the Jets this weekend, was part of a 3-way bidding action in which Derek grabbed them for $6. The other 2 contested players were Samaje Perine and Dawson Knox, both who went to me. So I thank you guys for letting me have those guys, since my team is such a dumpster fire. We didn't get any new wagers in this week. Nick's wager with me about Randall Cobb's over-under of 5.5 catch was almost over in a single game, as Cobb did get a hand on a throw meant for Devontae Adams at the very end of the game, but wasn't able to haul it in. But the 5-day catch really helped nicely in my bet against Drew, as I got a quarter of the production that I needed in the whole season in a single game. At the 4-game mark, Cobb sits at 9 catches, only needing 14 more to win me a second 6-pack. Might have to buy a Randall Cobb jersey. One thing that came up this week, I haven't figured out how I want to handle it. Looks like we got a bit of a hiccup with how we're going to work the Deuce playoffs. One of the reasons that I really wanted to go to a 14-team league was that we would no longer have the bye weeks in the Deuce playoff. And it turns out Yahoo doesn't actually support an 8-team consolation bracket, only 6 teams. So I'm not sure what I want to do yet. This year, I'll probably have to track it manually and figure out how we're going to work through that. And I can always adjust, standings to force the matchups to be right in week 2 of the Deuce brackets. It's going to be a mess, but if you have any great ideas about how I should fix that, let me know. Another option is to expand the main playoff to 8 teams, but I don't want to do that mid-season. That's something that we could vote on after the year, to go to 8 teams into the main bracket and 6 teams into the Deuce bracket. It's going to be a mess. That's it. We will see you next week for the recap of Week 5.